Finding ourselves today in the town of Galesburg, Illinois, and checking out a historic site indeed. It is the Carl Sandburg State Historic Site, and they've got a couple of signs or markers out here on a lesser traveled street telling us about this guy who is just so important to this town and so important to America, actually. This was his birthplace, and we'll talk more about why he's so significant, who this guy was. You might have heard the name, right? And known as an American poet, American writer, but also did some history stuff, so we'll get into that. But first I do want to kind of set expectations, because while it does tell us on the door that it opens at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, today is a Sunday and it is 1 p.m. and they are indeed closed. So unfortunately we can't go inside on this very blustery and rainy day. I'm gonna get wet, the camera's gonna get wet, we're gonna have some fun out here just looking around briefly at Carl's old backyard. And again, let's get started on why this guy's important. So many writers tend to be kind of like flowery in their language, especially poets. And Sandburg was known for his sort of plain writing, and he wrote about and for the average person. So he was not the academic type so much as he was an observer and a recorder of American life in its everyday form, which is an interest of mine, and hopefully it's an interest of yours as well, right? So I mentioned that he did dabble a bit in history, especially on the topic of Lincoln, and that's kind of interesting because his version of history was written more as a story, telling us about what has happened, right? And kind of reminds me of the German word for history is the same word as it is for the word story. So story and history in German, same word. And that's kind of like how Carl Sandburg viewed things, was that this was about telling us a narrative about something that's happened, in the case of some of his history stuff. So they've got a statue out here of him, so this is what he looked like. And they've also got his gravestone over here. So let's take a quick peek at that. And what it says there, so it's a little muddy, but what I can see is it says, for it could be a, I'm going to have to move the leaves. We're going to have to get over there and find out what this says. For it could be a place to come and remember. So I guess this is where people can come and pay their respects to one Carl Sandburg. But kind of interesting today, right? Why is this guy important today? I think that a lot of people have come to feel like perhaps some of the experts and some of the academics, some of the more famous people, the more influential people in our society had sort of gained a bit too much control over government and politics and the course of events. And so we are seeing a bit of a return perhaps to realizing that the average everyday person in our country is ultimately the person who gets to decide. And so if you're kind of getting too distant or too far away from where those people are at, which perhaps our country politically did since World War II, we've been on a course that has been perhaps a bit divergent from where the average American's at. So that is one of the very, I guess, relevant aspects of Carl Sandburg's work and what he stood for, and his writing being very much for the people.